Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I get into today's review, I do want to mention if you'd like to support the Gaming Gang, we have 4 tiers of membership over on our Patreon, and you'll find the link in the show notes. You're also invited to hang with the gang on Discord, and you will find the invite link also in the show notes. So today I am going to share my review of The Troubleshooters from Arcane Asylum Publishing, Helmgast AB, and Modiphius Entertainment. This 236-page hardcover is written by Kristen Sunderland. It is available now. You can order it in the US by way of Modiphius Entertainment. It carries an MSRP of $47.38 or thereabouts, depending on the exchange rate. And of course, if you order from Modiphius Entertainment, you'll also receive the PDF absolutely free. If you want to just grab the PDF, you can do so for $23.01. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got The Troubleshooters. A couple of things to mention. The fine folks over at Helmgast AB were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. Before I start talking about the particulars of The Troubleshooters, I do want to mention production quality is fantastic. I don't see too many role-playing game books that come with a dust jacket. And the paper stock is really heavy. This book is certainly going to hold up to a lot of repeated use at your game table. First thing we'll do, let's take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks work very hard to bring this to life, so let's give credit where credit is due. As far as The Troubleshooters, it is inspired by classic European comics of the 1960s and 1970s. Of which I don't really have any experience with. So I have not read Asterix. I have read a little bit of Tintin as a kid in doctor's offices or dentist's office or something like that. I remember there was a magazine aimed at kids which reprinted some of the Tintin adventures. That's about the experience I've got with that. So as an American, the vibe that we're looking for in The Troubleshooters is more along the lines of like Little Orphan Annie comic strips, the old Little Orphan Annie radio shows. I know I'm going like deep cut on this stuff. Man from U.N.C.L.E. or say the In Like Flynn films with James Coburn, which were kind of James Bond, but they were a bit more tongue-in-cheek, had a lot more humor to them. That's the sort of vibe you're going to get from The Troubleshooters adventures. Something a little more recent, something like Johnny Quest would be a good example. We're talking about global adventures, international espionage, and so forth. Now, the player characters are friends who find themselves going on these adventures, and we do have a variety of different archetypes for you to choose from, and each of the archetypes has things that they're particularly good at, and they're going to be able to take the spotlight in certain situations. The various different archetypes that are presented make a nice mix, and they should make for some very cool teams of adventurers. Now, nice thing about this too is you can create your own template if you'd like. You're not locked into only choosing from those that are in the book. Now, we do have skills and abilities, and mechanically, The Troubleshooters utilizes the percentile system. So if you're familiar with basic role-playing games like Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, and so forth, you'll slide right on in to the main action resolution mechanic for The Troubleshooters. There are differences, and there are additional wrinkles that I will talk about as well. Now, as far as skills and abilities, skills anybody can have. Abilities only certain people will have. So, of course, the abilities would be based on your archetype. You can create new abilities if you'd like. And of course, if you're creating your own character from whole cloth, you can choose different abilities that are going to fit that sort of character that you're creating. I like the fact that we've got the breakdown of how you would use these, as well as what might happen if you're attempting a task with the skill or ability and it fails. Now, the Troubleshooters is a scene-based role-playing game, so this is certainly not a sandbox, emergent play sort of role-playing game, so it's important to keep that in mind as well. As far as the mechanics, we do have the percentile system, so if you've got a skill of, say, 75 or an ability of 75, normally you're looking to roll and simply roll 75 or less, and you succeed. Now, there are some other things going on with those mechanics. We have what's known as pips. So you can have positive pips, you can have negative pips. And I find this to be really interesting because if you have like negative pips, it's really going to penalize characters with low skills as opposed to high skills. I thought that's really interesting. So if you've got positive pips, let's say you've got 2 positive pips. All you're doing when you roll your dice looking to succeed at whatever task you're looking to accomplish, if the tens die comes in at 0 to the pips, so 2 pips would be 0 to 2, then it's an automatic success. Now, on the flip side of that, if it's negative pips and your die roll falls in that range, then it automatically fails. So if you have a lower skill or lower ability and you have a negative pip situation, you are penalized for having a lower skill or ability. I thought that's very cool. There are also options of just simply adding and subtracting from the base chance, but I do like the pip system quite a bit. We have duels, which is a very interesting concept where the game master is going to set a number of successes that a player or NPC is going to need to make in order to win the duel. And it's a back and forth. So as an example, player says, okay, I'm going to try doing this with this ability. They roll, they succeed, that's going to count as a success. Now, the opponent in the duel then gets to respond with something that they want to do. And if they succeed, well, then that's a success. Pretty cool what's going on. And once again, this is a rules-like game. Just because we've got these other factors that can come into play does not make this a difficult game to wrap your head around by any stretch. Now, like many kids on bikes sort of role-playing games, it is frowned upon for the game master to kill the player characters off. In fact, anytime that the player character takes damage, it's up to the player to decide if it's just temporary damage or if it's like lethal damage. I thought that was pretty cool. We also have story points that the players earn and they use to reroll dice or switch dice around. So you can switch the 10s with the 1s. There are a variety of different things that you can spend story points on. Now, one thing that's a little odd is if the player character gets captured, they get a lot of story points. So the maximum number of story points that a player can have at one time is 12. Getting captured gives you 9. So I could see some players trying to game the system and always getting captured. Then again, look at any James Bond movie, and you always have the villain capturing Bond and then telling him what the plans are anyway. So, but I did think that was a little off. As far as combat goes, you're going to have various different weapons. We've got loads of different gear, vehicles, things like that. But as far as combat, once again, you're rolling your percentile dice. You might have the pips, positive or negative. You may not. And then whatever weapon that you have is going to have a certain number of 6-sided dice that you're going to roll. You're going to roll those dice. And for every 4, 5, or 6, you're actually going to to a wound. And the characters, the NPCs, they all have vitality. And vitality runs, for the most part, from 4 to 7, depending on the sort of character you've got. So once you hit 0 vitality, if you're a player character, you're knocked out. But then again, of course, as a player, if you want your player character to make some supreme sacrifice, you can decide that your player character gets killed. But that was kind of an interesting twist, too. As far as the game world of the Troubleshooters, it is a fictional late 1960s, early 1970s. There are some things which have historically taken place, such as World War II. There are other things that have not, such as the United States has not landed on the moon first. It was actually France and Japan with a joint cooperative mission who lands on the moon. So some really cool, interesting wrinkles to our real history as opposed to the Troubleshooters history. I got to say, the main focus to me with the Troubleshooters is making sure that everybody is having a lot of fun, that their characters are all getting to spend time in the spotlight and so forth. We do have a Game Master section, and that kind of gives us more information about how to run the game. We get more information about the game world, as well as adversaries of the player characters. So our big bad organization is the Octopus, sort of along the lines of the Troubleshooters version of Spectre from the James Bond films. So I like that. We get a bunch of information about NPCs, various different stat blocks. As you can see, the stat blocks for NPCs are very short, very concise, very similar to what you see with many basic role-playing sort of titles out there too. Sadly, we do not have an introductory adventure for the Troubleshooters. I really wish we had seen that. And I say that all the time when we've got core rule books, that I always love to see introductory adventures, not simply because it's giving us an adventure, which I think is important. It also provides us with a bit of a look inside how the design philosophy of adventures is with that particular game. We do not get to see that with the core book. Now, I do know there's at least one published adventure out there for the Troubleshooters. I don't know how much more support as far as adventures go we have or what might be on the horizon. So that is a peek inside the Troubleshooters. Let's swing on over to the other camera. I'm going to share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I think the Troubleshooters is fantastic. It is, production quality wise, one of the best looking books, one of the best put together books I have seen in my career of reviewing role-playing game books. So that is really saying something. It's also obviously a labor of love by Kristen Sunderland. And sadly, I don't really have experience with the sorts of comic books that are the inspiration for the Troubleshooters, but I do have an idea of the vibe that the Troubleshooters is aiming for. As far as the mechanics, very easy for players and game masters to wrap their heads around. There's enough of some variations there with the pips and the story points that it's not always just going to be the same old, oh, I roll a die, succeed, roll a die. Quite a bit going on there. And of course, like most in-game currency with role-playing games, those story points are made to be spent. So you find that there are a lot of different ways for the players to both earn and spend those story points. As far as any negatives, sadly, like I said, there's no adventure present. And I got to be honest, I don't know how much support the Troubleshooters gets. I know there's one published adventure that I'm aware of. Outside of that, I don't know. And that's always something that kind of worries me a little bit about some games, especially role-playing games that have a very, very narrow genre, such as the Troubleshooters has. But having said that, this is an awesome book. It really, really is. So even with the little minor quibbles I've got, I still feel that on a scale of 0 to 10, the Troubleshooters gets a 9 out of 10. It is that good. If you have any interest in the genre of adventures that the Troubleshooters provides, this must be in your collection. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, if you'd like to support the Gaming Gang, we do have a Patreon. You'll find that link in the show notes. And be sure to hang with the gang on Discord. We have an invite link also in the show notes. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.